THC.
Oh, can you buy the
Buy it
extract
now.
just cause?
I
Sure.
got kegs. I got
the extract?
kegs. I can mix it
I'm
myself.
sure you could buy it somewhere
I know I can.
at a
And-
dispensary, right?
No, they
Wait.
won't sell you the.
No.
Oh,
And if they did, it would be marked up spectacularly.
No, you just call one of the THC.
Call one
Guys
of the suppliers.
who
Just like
yeah.
calling ordering hops.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Um,
Oh, there we go.
before the. I don't know. Like
Are you going to start home brewing THC
Yeah.
beverages?
It's gonna make
Are-
it will be for beer only.
Are
soda
hemp
water.
beverages your new home brew?
I think well, let's just say this. I think what we missed out on because of this hiccup in not being able to effectively regulate.
Oh, I thought you were going to say what we missed out on was introducing our guest.
Oh no. We're not. We're just
We're warming up.
yeah, we're
I
warming up.
know.
Arizona is a wildly beautiful place, brimming with over 100 brewing companies. I'm Rob Fulmer, the Executive Director of the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild. I'm joined by Deputy Director Andrew Bauman. Together we cover the state, bringing you the best of what's happening at our breweries and beyond. Welcome to Arizona Beer Frontier.
So I think
Well,
what we missed is, in homebrewing, we missed the design of these kinds of beverages, like the recipe, making the traditions, the stories behind them. So we're missing out on that. And like I often said, like these seltzers and THC beverages, where by definition are non-alcoholic, I've never had one that I just craved in and of itself, right? The effect is desirable. Now, some would argue that it's the same for alcohol, but to some people, I guess. But to me, like, and it's a thing where your brain makes the connection, Pavlov kind of thing,
Yeah.
like, right. When I'm getting off on a tangent, but that's okay. When I went and met with the Mexico, Canada, USA working group with the governor's office, there was somebody who had some sort of product, and they said, it's a biofeedback thing, and it says we have a product that helps relieve stress in 30 seconds. We were going around the room, and I said, I also represent a product that
Helps really.
that helps release stress within 30 seconds. As soon as you hear the can open, it starts. So there is that. So I think there is a learning curve. When I was in Chicago, people talked about how they develop beer recipes, and there was a brewery there that said we're doing the same thing with our hemp beverages. We starting with what the water looks like, what we feel the ingredients we want to use are. Do we want to base them off the ingredients that we also use for beer? We want to make those connections, and what are the interactions between not having malt and these other types of sugars? So like there, you can do that, and we're some of us would go on to do that. I think it's legal. Some of us wouldn't. But like again, I want to get to a beverage that is desired in and of its own self, and that's the problem with, I feel like, non-alcoholic beers. They remind me too much of homebrewing and making an unfinished beer. Like it has not gone through all the fermentation process, and it has the residual elements of that. That's a problem for me because of how I got to where I am. Other people who have no concept of that, like they like that extra sweetness. I remember there was a product called Malta. It's sold mostly outside of the United States. It's a malt beverage. People grow up on that, so I can understand how they wouldn't have that problem at all.
People ask me, because I drink NA beers, and they say, "Oh, is it really like an IPA?" And I say, "Well, look, it's not a beer, so it's gonna be different. Like the way that alcohol does things in your mouth
Mhm.
inherently makes this not the same, but it can still be good and similar. But don't expect it to be exactly like your favorite IPA because that's just not how it's going to work.
It's true, but I can't get past that sometimes.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely.
There are things that have evolved with us. Alcohol is one of them. For Western culture, like for other cultures, like they don't have that analog. But like the other one is lactic fermentation, pickles, kimchi,
Ginger.
all those things. Even though that we don't require it as a society more to, because we have cooking and refrigeration, like it's still very like strong for people to crave that or to
Mhm.
have that part of their diet. I was just watching something and like it was like 2.5 ounces a day of kimchi is what most Koreans eat every day. It's not a lot, but it's a lot
Yeah,
it's every day, right?
something you consume every day at some, 2.5 ounces. I mean, it's not a very heavy product, so it could be sort of.
Yeah. But I don't know. Is caffeine?
I would make the argument that people go through coffee like they do with alcohol. You generally start with very sweet, milky coffee when you're younger, and
Yeah.
then you progress, and some people get really into coffee and just really like, certain kinds, and they tend to put less additives to it,
Right.
right? Less sugar, less whipped cream, less flavors, less, because they feel like the coffee speaks for itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's what hemp beverages could do if they find a way to.
Well, I think a lot of the characters that are reminiscent of hops sometimes are removed. Like terpenes are the flavors of them removed. I don't know. It's
Remember back in the day of homebrewing when there was have you made a weed beer yet? Have you made a weed beer yet?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that was always like, and everyone would say, yeah, I did. Don't do it. Like everyone was like, just don't.
There was a new Belgian product called the Hemperor. It was a hemp-based beer, but it was super heavy in the dank marijuana smell. Like it had that aroma, and I thought it was a great beer, and I don't know that anyone else did anything comparable to it. Certainly not anymore.
I remember they did a release party at Pita Jungle.
I was at what's the sandwich place?
Chiba Hut.
Chiba Hut. I was at Chiba Hut yesterday afternoon.
Yep.
Packed, full bar, packed. I mean, it is ASU, but
Yeah.
anyway, we do have a guest today, and we will be talking about hemp and other things and other legal things. We were here with Camila Alarcon.
Yes. Hi.
And it's been
Good
a while.
to be back.
It's been a while.
It's been a while on the
It has
pod.
been.
It's
It
not
has
a
been.
while for us.
Yeah, that's right. I talk to you guys all the time, and I listen to the pod all the time. But it has been a few months since I've been on.
Yeah. So I
So
want
I'm
to
happy to be back.
I want to put a heavy disclaimer on the show. You're going to hear from Camila, who is a lawyer by trade, an attorney by trade, represents the guild. I don't want anything that you hear on this show to be used as a reason to.
This is not legal advice.
Yeah.
This is not legal advice.
It's a great reason to pick up the phone and call her or any other liquor professional, not any lawyer. And also, depending on the type of subject, I mean, you might find a very specific lawyer for a very specific problem, or somebody
Right.
who is used to defending at the liquor board versus just licensing. I mean, you may want to decide on somebody who does that, or, at the very least, you should have a general counsel for these kinds of things, and then also maybe somebody who understands Title IV. And why is it just me? Does Title IV seem different than a lot of other statutes, chapters of statute?
I think it does. And I mean, now at this point of my career, I exclusively do alcohol regulation. So I don't do anything else. But in other times I have done, you know, a lot of administrative law, a lot of other kinds of licensing and compliance. And Title IV just assumes historical knowledge and just you have to know how the industry works and how the department works in order to read those statutes, because there's a lot of stuff that happens that isn't inherent, that isn't clear from the statute. And that's not really the case if you read Title 41 or Title 12 or, you know, even the other professions like contractors or, you know, doctors, osteopaths, like all things I have been very familiar with in the past. Like they don't have the complexity that Title IV does. And you know, we also created the Title IV monster because we amend those statutes every single year, and we tend to pile on, and instead of going through them and maybe simplifying them, and just sort of trying to go in a more methodical, like, these are the changes we should make, and if we make these changes, we should also consider the impact in the language and other statutes. That's not really a process that we've gone through in the past. Like, for instance, the special event licenses. So we have a special event statute. We added special event contractors. We just sort of shoved them into like a subsection, and we didn't really change anything else. And then we sort of started tweaking stuff, and then we're like, oh man, we forgot to do this. And so now you read it and it's pages and pages long. You know, you have subsections that are, 300 words. And that's really not how you write statutes. And that's not really how any other title is written.
It's fair to say that a lot of what's in there has a inherent protection for anyone who existed in the system first.
Absolutely.
And there are, in other industries, you call that rent seeking and protectionism. Even our breweries as smaller players, there is some inherent protection in some of the things that you're right, and some of it's not apparent at first. Certain aspects of the 3-tier system that many people who are craft beer aficionados or brewery people, people who started breweries, inherently think that is something against us, but there's a lot of protections in it. And there are things when you have a new class of beverage, like perhaps hemp beverage, like when those don't have that, it becomes really clear, like the trade practice aspect, the ability to buy a shelf is something that product would have without regulation, whereas we can't do that, and we would never want to do that. As small breweries, we just can't compete. We couldn't afford to do that. We would be shut out. We would be like Mexico, where very large breweries completely dominate. With the changes, though, like with beer being down and beer distributors being a dominant force in Title IV, with their priorities perhaps changing, are there more opportunities or less opportunities to fix some of the things that we're talking about, or some of the things that they had considered sacred ground? Are they up for grabs now, maybe, or do you think there's? To me, I think they are, but I don't know. There's no one to talk to. Like there's no person responsible at each of these distributors to negotiate that. It seems like they sort of deferred to their trade industry a little bit.
Yeah, are you asking if there is the stomach to do a wholesale change in Title IV? And I don't think there is, because whoever is going to do it is going to want to get paid for it. And I don't think any trade association wants to pay for it.
Yeah.
And also you have to ensure that everybody in the room has a very deep understanding of how Title IV is written, how Title IV is implemented, and the impact it has on the industry members, and feel comfortable that the language might be changing, but the impact is going to be the same. And I don't see how we can get there.
Yeah.
I think there has to be a different sort of comfort level among everybody within all the industry all the stakeholders, and it would just be such a huge task, and nobody really, or there isn't enough desire to have that wholesale change in order for it to happen. Because when there is a huge inconsistency, when you're like, this is being interpreted by the department in a way that we never ever thought it would happen, we do change it. We have changed that, right?
hmm
We changed that whole interpretation of if you have if you have more than one brewery, then you could not have remote locations. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So that was a change that caught us by surprise years after we had written that language in statute, and we went ahead and changed it the following year. And so it ended up not being an issue for that, it ended up being an issue for a couple of years because of the way the process worked.
Right. So the effect was if you had two breweries that produce beer, they were saying, well, you no longer qualify for the 7 locations because you are otherwise engaged as a brewery. That was
Or the remote,
Yeah.
because you were otherwise engaged. So you can have 7 locations, but you couldn't have remote.
remote, meaning restaurant
Yes,
without
that-
brewing beer or
without being attached to
a
a
brewery.
brewery. Yes.
Got you.
So that was something but in order to sit down and say, okay, we're going to rewrite the special event statute, which
Yeah.
does really need to be written, because unless you are us and deal with special events all the time, I deal it in a different capacity than you guys deal with it. I get asked special event questions all the time,
Yeah.
and they just don't they read it and they do not understand. And I understand why they don't understand.
Right.
And we had that same issue come up this year in the legislative process when I wrote language to allow trade associations to do basically the same thing that they do on special events. And it was a very difficult task to explain what you do as a special event contractor for a special event and how a trade association can also do that for a beer festival.
Yeah. It occurs to me that like special events aren't special any longer. And I do know people who feel like there should be a way for them, irrespective of any charitable donation, or to just be able to get a temporary bar license is what it amounts to.
Mhm.
And, I don't know that they understand like, well, this would be working against a lot of license holders for one, but for two, I mean, you'd have to buy at retail value. You couldn't get any donated product, and maybe some of them are okay with that. I don't know, but I think you also then can't use their tents and their equipment and labor,
Mhm.
and I think that's where the rubber meets the road for that kind of
Right.
thing. But yeah, I mean, so your comment about education, I think in the past we really kind of didn't talk about some of the inconsistencies because we wanted to get certain things done. And that may continue, but I think there's also probably a need. I won't identify who it was, but we had a legislator come to our meeting and we kind of recapped what happened. Yeah, I voted against that. I didn't understand what what your issues were, and I said, yeah, I get that, and like it wasn't part
Yeah.
of the. It wasn't necessarily part of the strategy to get into that level, right?
Right.
Because we were running it a different way, um, and I thought it was the most effective way, honestly, too. But maybe at a base level, we need to have more of those outreaches to really explain some of those things, and we have an opportunity with next week. Um, U.S. Representative Stanton, this district, to talk about tariffs and some other things. And it's sort of expanded in scope. I think there's a chance that we might get the governor there. They're also looking for other people outside the district. So, and we'll see. But like, um, probably whether we do any, traditional bill changing, bill writing, probably need to do that within our legislators and our local politicians for sure. But again, yeah, it costs money and time to do that. The other thing I would say, and is there are a lot of people who work in the liquor space who are lobbyists who clearly don't understand a lot about the business aspect, trade practice aspect. Um, they're just very good lobbyists or effective lobbyists. And so I don't know if that changes anything. It seems like there's a lot of people working on an island who have a general framework of what they're supposed to accomplish. If I just remember in other instances, if I literally went to their top person or someone and said, "This is really what you want," I think they would get a different answer than the lobbyist.
Sure. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. I was thinking when we did the wholesale change to the rules, right? So the resources that entailed, it took 7 to 8 years to get that done.
Whoa.
And the department hired a rule writer. And we sat through countless stakeholder meetings. I mean, I sat through them as an assistant attorney general, and then I sat through them in private practice. And I mean, it was like everybody agreed that the rules were very outdated and that they needed changed. And it was still a process that took an enormous amount of resources. And those resources and the desire came from the department. So when you're changing directors with every administration, there's just not enough time to get that done. And that process did go through probably 2 or 3 directors. But the funding for the rule writer was already there. The permission to rewrite the rules from the governor's office was already there. Like it was so that process was complicated enough. Imagine doing that, even if you do it in sections to get it through the legislature. When you're just trying to, when you have a bill that has 2 or 3 different components, a lot of times one of the components has to fall off because you can't explain all of it in 15 minutes or in the 45 seconds you have. When we do the industry-wide, stakeholder bill, well, they sort of understand that that's coming. Most part, we didn't have one this year, but we've had one for the prior 10 years in a row, at least. And so they at least understand that that's going to happen, most likely, and that everybody was in agreement. Well, if you say, well, we're going to have this, 100-page bill, we're going to make, and it's basically like we're repealing all of these statutes and adding all of these new statutes, that's too much.
Yeah, that was a knock on adding hemp beverage to our system. It was we're writing a really long bill, and I don't know. I mean, it would be irresponsible for us not to make sure it fits in every section. So it is
Yeah, and there was, I mean, I remember, I think we could talk about the issues with that bill now that it's no longer going forward. I mean, that was one of my primary questions, was like, you can't just add words to um every aspect of you can't, wherever it said spirituous liquor, you can't also add, adult hemp beverages and have it make sense. Um but I also understand the complexities of not doing that. So if you look at other statutes, right, like gaming, or yeah, let's take gaming, right? When they added fantasy sports, they actually just added a section in Title V for fantasy sports and sort of left everything else there. They did the same thing for bingo, so you can do that. And there might be an argument of like, well, do you do that? Or if you do that, do you also end up doubling the size of
Right.
Title IV, because we want to treat them, because like fantasy sports is treated very differently than bingo,
Sure.
and it's treated very differently than anything that has to do with gambling on casinos and so forth. So, but here we were saying, well, we want to treat hemp beverages like spirituous liquor. So anyway,
Spirituous liquor meaning beer, wine, and spirits. People,
yeah,
I mean,
beer, wine, and distilled spirits.
that is
yes.
one of the things that actually came up again with the golf course bill.
Yeah,
It had to be explained because the initial legislative reaction was like, we're talking about spirits, like we're talking about everything when we talk
Yeah.
about spirituous liquor. And for some reason that was, that I guess it's not that bad. For others, it was like, oh, that's terrible. You know what I mean? Right.
Right.
It just depends. But it strikes me that I remember the discussion about having it its own section
Yeah.
or incorporating it. And there was no right or wrong answer. And it wasn't motivated by anyone's self-interest or politically motivated at all. It was just, how do we want to tackle this and how do we want to be responsible for it moving forward? It was interesting to me that we folded it in because that strategically says, well, if you can do these things for a new beverage, then why is it that we have such contrast between the bills, the sections that are for liquor, wine, and beer, specifically the franchise situation. Those other two
Right.
do not have that, and beer does. And like, I'm not here to suggest that franchise law is killing us, but it has ramifications that I think are very subtle, and it is something that probably should get solved one way or the other, or relaxed, or agreed upon differently than it was originally intended in the state. Because I can't point to necessarily, they went out of business because of franchise law, but I can tell you, it might have limited a lot of their options, and it also means that there's a lot more cataloged out of state beers here that are just that might have gone away, but they have this franchise value, and they're just kind of hung on to by distributors in the event. Like, it's like they all have lottery tickets. Like, why would you throw away your lottery ticket, even if the chances are very remote that brand would go to somebody else and they would pay a lot of money for it? I think we should take a break because
Okay.
I would like a adult beverage. And you mentioned that you were drinking a lot of liquids. So.
Yes,
We should probably
I know.
take a quick break.
I'm on the coffee train.
All right.
And we're back.
I'm getting massive.
And we have
taste.
some adult beverages. I've got the. I went to Orval Day at Arizona Wilderness a few weeks ago, and they came out with Homage. Each year they make a new version, which is the same as last year's version, but then each year they have a vertical available.
And we were drinking them out of This Week in Rauk beer glasses. I know that doesn't make sense, but it doesn't
Yeah.
have to. You know what else we missed? I didn't celebrate National Beer Day.
Oh, yeah.
And yesterday, which is the 9th.
I didn't celebrate National Beer Day with you, but I did celebrate it. And I did post about it in our guild social media. So.
Can I open this?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. That's the sound of 30 seconds of stress. No.
This is the sound of lightly essenced lemon sparkling water.
Yes.
Okay.
That was an inherited beverage from one of our guild get-togethers.
Yeah.
Budget sparkling water. We also missed, yesterday, went unnoticed that Pierre Celis passed away.
Oh, I didn't know that.
About 15 years ago. Pierre Celis bought the Hoegaarden Brewery in Belgium as it was being, closed, and brought back literally single-handedly the style of wit beer. Took a while for it to catch on, but when you talk about people's craft beer or experience, a lot of it starts with Blue Moon or something like that. Not necessarily Hoegaarden, certainly not some of the wit beers that some of our are building are making. I tried to find. I could have went to Pedal House because they have an amazing wit beer. I also drank. I think Fate has a apple wit beer.
Surprise, surprise.
It's interesting. It's a little more apple than wit, so I didn't dig that one up. But anyway, Pierre Celis.
There you go.
Moved his brewery to Texas,
Cheers.
of all places.
I still have coffee, but
All right, we were talking legal stuff, right? Legal law.
yes,
Policy.
We were.
we're
We're gonna
talking legislation.
We're still going to talk about it.
Yeah, I am
you-
here.
One of the things that we talked about is in the last couple of directors, there were a lot of them.
Yeah.
You've been doing this for 12, 13, 14 years, somewhere in there. You worked there.
I worked there. So I've been doing this for 18 years.
Yeah. So some of that was with the department, and then
Yeah.
about 13 or 14 with the guild.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And
I got hired by the guild at the end of 2012.
okay. So when you were working at the department, who were the directors that you were under?
I worked under, I got there right after Jerry Oliver took over, and then Alan Everett.
Alan Everett. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's my first recollection of working in the job and working with Director Everett. He was business friendly. He was a
Yeah.
former mayor of Sedona.
That's
as
right.
well.
Yes.
Um,
Alan has had a great, wonderful, interesting career. Like, he's done so many different things.
Yeah.
He would be a great guest.
he would be.
He's done so many like, he's worked in the corporate world, and then he was mayor of Sedona, and then he was director. Like, he has done so many things in his life. He's a
Cool.
very interesting person.
It seems like being the mayor of Sedona back then would be a better job than being the mayor
Oh,
of Sedona today.
Yes. He was mayor of Sedona pre-Airbnb.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the first thing I think. I was like, that would consume. It would consume
Yeah.
every day,
Yes.
and the effects of it are so prevalent. And everything, every restaurant you go to, you're talking to people who are displaced by Airbnb.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, he was mayor of Sedona at a time when Sedona was still quirky and there wasn't traffic jams.
Right.
A very different town.
I just imagine, what are you going to do about all these hippies? kind of calls,
That is not the question now.
No.
No. Now the hippies are calling. What are you going to do about all these?
Well, you're
Yeah.
just a hippie with money.
Why are there so many
Exactly.
black Suburbans driving around all the time?
Right.
So Everett, and then who else?
Wait, we're going to go through all the directors
Just real quickly, yeah.
in order.
No, it doesn't. Sure.
It's easier that way.
I don't know.
After
So-
Everett came.
It was
Coca?
Coca.
Right? Was there a director between there?
I don't believe so. There was Coca,
And then we had like a interim
Of about
period,
how many months? Like a year, maybe?
maybe.
Yeah.
And then we got Tracy.
Tracy Uffelman,
Yes.
right?
And now we have Ben Henry.
Right.
But I feel like we're forgetting people, but
We have to be. For 18 years, there wasn't 4 directors.
But there were 4 directors in 3 years.
Yeah.
Something like that.
something like, well, because they're between Coca, and Coca was there for what, 6, 7 years?
Yeah.
7?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a,
It was Coca, nobody,
Tracy.
but
DPS.
DPS,
Yeah.
technically. Yeah, the director of
Oh.
the DPS, and then Tracy,
yeah,
and then Ben Henry. That's 5
yeah.
if you count, because there was nobody for a
Right.
long time, and then it was the DPS.
I mean, that was
Which-
2020, right?
Yeah, it was 2021.
21?
Yeah,
21. It wasn't 2020.
Um,
It was
it was right
21,
after.
22.
It was
Beginning
Towards
of
the-
21.
towards the end of COVID.
Right.
That's when I'm talking Coca, nobody.
yeah.
And then Tracy.
Well, no, the director of the DPS,
Right.
and then Tracy. Yeah. Anyway,
It's been a whirlwind.
so my point is
That is not good.
one of the things that Director Uffelman, Tracy, Director Uffelman, raised the budget and hired a lot more agents. Presumably, it was, I think, coming from a distributor angle and coming from somebody who was trying to be super business friendly. I think it was really to tighten up the rules and understand more of the trade practice stuff, get it dialed in. That's my guess. How that's being used now is probably different. So they have a lot more agents. They've hired a lot more people. And one of the things I noticed is things that we used to get as civil violations or violations under Title IV are getting deferred to criminal. Specifically in special events.
Okay. It's special events in the sense of serving to underage.
Serving to underage or
Consuming while serving.
consuming while serving, that kind of thing.
So, at least for underage, the department historically has taken the approach of cite the licensee administratively and cite the person that actually
Right.
did the selling or
Right. I just know of an instance where for a festival, it was a criminal and there was no civil at all. So there wasn't anything to really
We couldn't-
understand
yeah.
about the case.
and there might be reasons for that, because at a festival, wait, was it a special event? Or
Yes,
a special,
it was a special event.
the special event, the licensee is charity,
Right.
the nonprofit.
Right.
So you might not have an interest in citing, let's say, the Boys and Girls Club
Right.
for a liquor violation.
Right.
You might just say, no, I am just going to cite this
Right.
volunteer, but you can't cite the volunteer or whoever it is administratively because they don't hold a liquor license. You just cite them, give them a. To me, that makes perfect.
I don't know. Then why did we ever get cited? I know we're
Well,
not the Boys and Girls
Yeah.
Club.
We're repeat. And
I don't know.
I mean, did we ever get cited?
We had citations. They weren't they were mitigated too.
Okay.
But my point is, it's a data point for us to understand what's going on and what the reason is and what the story is, and if there's something that we need to be aware of, something that the department needs to be aware of, that
Right.
kind of thing. That was seemed to be missing from my experience in working with the department. Now we got the story eventually,
Okay.
but
Well, I just pulled up earlier today all the list of violations for this year, and they're all underage or selling too much
Yeah.
as an out-of-state direct distributor.
Oh, right.
That's it.
What is
There
that?
were no over. There was maybe one over service.
Over service is very difficult to cite for the department because you have to be there and
In that
the
incident,
time.
there were 4 different violations, and it was over service. it was failing to remove them from the premise. You know, they just stacked it up.
Yeah, and I have back when I was a assistant AG, I had a case once. It was an overservice. Investigator, very well, and I just remember getting the file, and it was great because, like I said, overservice cases were very difficult to prove from the department side. So I just remember getting the file and reading the investigation report, which sort of outlined all the out of service, and then I had photos at the end, and one of them, was this woman who had just vomited, and I'm like, well, okay, case closed.
I guess we got this one.
Guess we got this one. So, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering correctly, the investigator was Craig, so he did a very good job, and it was just always one of my favorite cases, and I bet he still remembers it to this day.
Craig Miller, now with ALIC,
Right.
Arizona Licensing Industry Consultants, or Arizona Liquor Industry Consultants. Well, it should be. I mean, we have that opinion now that that servers don't have to interrogate their customers. It should be based on their behavior at the time that they're served, and it has yet to be challenged again from the trial lawyers.
Yeah,
the statute should be controlling, and the statute says based on their observations and behavior.
yeah,
You don't have to say, "Hey, what were you doing before this? Where'd you
No.
go?" Which was a crutch that a lot of trial lawyers leaned on. I mean, they still might prevail in that if they get the right case, right? Challenge that. No, you're shaking your head.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I was shaking my head just because you never know what facts you're going to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing what happens when you're like, oh, that would never happen. That would logically never be the case. And sure enough,
Yeah.
There it
you get a
is.
fact
Right.
pattern and you're like, this has actually happened. So
The-
that was my shaking my head.
Oh yeah. So the case involves somebody who went home and then was driven home by their sister. Slept temporarily at the sister's house, got up in the middle of the night, went back out, drank some more, and killed somebody. And the question was like, where does the responsibility of the liquor establishment end?
Yeah.
And I think that's what it tried to address. I think most people would say that's clearly a lot for someone who's selling liquor hours ago to be responsible.
Yeah.
I think that having the decision that supports that's a little bit beyond the pale. They actually argued not only is that valid for us trial lawyers and necessary for us to prosecute these cases or not prosecute, but anyway, that also you could be very tired and completely sober, but very tired from the experience of being overserved or overserving yourself. Let's be honest. Let's be
Right.
clear that we should also be able to hold them responsible. So that is a step forward, but we'll see how it plays out. And if,
Yeah.
So the idea being, if someone was at a liquor establishment, had several drinks, got a safe ride home, then proceeded to drink 3 more beers, and then leave their house.
I think they didn't drink beer. That's
If they did,
some other alcohol.
whatever,
product.
then you would still be held responsible.
That was sort of the way the cases were going.
Prior
It's bonkers.
prior theory.
Yeah.
And I don't even think there needed to be, in the prior theory, right? There needed to be that extra consumption of alcohol. Let's say you went someplace, you consumed alcohol, you got yourself home, you took a nap, and then you went out,
Yeah.
because you
Right.
could have taken 45-minute nap. You're still
Right.
highly intoxicated.
Right.
And then you went out and committed the, whatever act it was.
So it's like-
usually a car accident, but yeah.
It's like the self-defense law. Like you had an opportunity to leave the situation. You left the situation and you came back. That's
But
what
the
it's
question
announced
is like whether or not the licensee should be liable.
to. Right.
So you know, we also back in the department, I don't do litigation anymore. So I don't do these kinds of cases. I don't do dram shop cases. But back when I represented the department, you know, we also have the obvious intoxicated language in overservice and also in the dram shop. And if there is a car accident, a fatality of any sort, it did initiate a trace case, which was, the department trying to figure out whether or not the licensee should be held liable administratively.
Wrong way drivers.
And I represented the department before the one-way driver sort of
Exploded.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure there were plenty of wrong way drivers, but that wasn't like a focus. And it was always difficult, at least for us to administratively hold the licensee liable, because you can serve somebody and they not show signs as dictated in statute of obvious intoxication. But when they're in their car 30 minutes later, they can have, or when they cause the accident, when they get pulled over by the police, like whatever happens, they show extreme signs of over intoxication, but that does not mean that they had it when they were in the establishment. And of course, now video evidence is your friend generally, and much better than it was in 2008. But that's really the test is, are you serving them and are they displaying signs of obvious intoxication? Or are you walking by the table and you're like, what is going on over there?
Right.
Like, I need to get those people out of here in the next, half hour or
Right.
so.
Well, prior to this video evidence, I'm glad to hear you affirming that that's generally a good idea if you're a good operator.
It is.
That is consistent with what David
Yeah.
DiLorenzo tells us. Before all this video evidence, like they would just look at receipts and like, if you look at my receipts, like, yeah, I mean, like, but I bought a lot of beers from other people and like,
Yeah.
it's if that video is that person just sitting at the bar and behaving like everybody else, whether or not they were severely intoxicated, they weren't showing just signs.
Technical term is housed.
and if they don't show the signs on the video, like that's strong in your
Yeah.
case. And there are people who can effectively do that. And as soon as they move around and they get behind the wheel, it's like a completely different story. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, we all have our stories of maybe going, hey, I probably should have.
And then there's reasonable knowledge of you serve them 4 shots and 4 beers.
Yeah.
Well, I had those cases too,
Yeah.
where it was an obscene amount of alcohol in 90-minute period.
Yeah.
And I mean, today it is different. I mean, the open and shut case is do not serve to an underage. Like,
Right.
because if that underage leaves your establishment and gets in an accident or whatever instigates some sort of dram shop case, you have no defense. They were under the age of 21.
Right.
I mean, if you have video proof that you showed ID and they, I guess, but
Well, there are some convincing. There are some that if you take the liquor training, confiscated ideas that are pretty
they're
compelling.
excellent. Yeah.
And there
But
was
now
a
they're
case,
subject to 125% tariffs. So
there
there's
was-
not going to be as many
because
out there.
because there was a case where somebody associated with the DMV had stolen some equipment from their parents, or somehow,
Yeah.
and were manufacturing these IDs. That was an ASU case, not 10 years ago or less. Yeah, I mean, people can buy these overseas that are very, very convincing. And so I don't know, man. This came up in our national discussion because someone's trying to write a law where every every ID has to be scanned. I'm like, that doesn't really.
No,
Protect-
they have
No.
scanners.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they
But
have
that doesn't-
barcodes or
That
yeah.
doesn't establish that that's that person's ID.
No,
And
it
that's
doesn't.
so it doesn't really fix the problem. It just adds a lot of overhead. I mean, it's a great tool if you can afford it, for sure. Like, and you can actually cultivate all the demographic data from that and use it to your marketing purposes if you want. I mean, there's a value to it, but like, it doesn't solve that particular problem. That's not going to prevent an underage person from using
No.
an ID like that. So, and the law is clear. Like, you have to look at them, and you have
Mhm.
there you might have to question them too, right? I mean,
Yeah, you have to make sure. Okay, you have to make sure it's a valid ID. You have to double check that the person is of legal drinking age, and you have to make sure that the person matches.
right,
And that is a little bit more difficult,
right,
Because you can get a fake ID with your photo.
yeah,
Sure.
With a birth date that says that you are
Yeah.
over the age of 21. And you can, but it is on the licensee
right,
to prove that they followed all those steps, which again, simple video
yeah,
over the register or, where you order does, over the bar.
right.
Um,
So
Would-
I mean, it's not like if you have build a practice, like they actually encourage you to ask a question or two if you have any doubt, and like if you consistently do that,
yeah.
then that provides more evidence for you to mitigate or remove the charge. Right?
I did a lot of people at Baja this week. A lot.
Yeah.
And every time I was like, picture, face. Okay, you're good. I mean,
Yeah,
there's not a lot of people that are under 21 that are going to be paying 55 or 75 bucks for a ticket
Mhm.
to get in a beer fest just because they want that bad to be at the beer fest. So it wasn't like a super difficult.
Yeah.
But I tell you though, I mean, similar type of crowd, similar type of atmosphere. There was the Scottsdale Polo Games, which as someone who's in college who wants to have some status, like that's a big deal, like just to be there. Or the Waste Management, right? Because
Mhm.
so there are things that people will spend a lot of money to be at,
Right.
whether they
Oh, yeah.
drink
Sure,
or not.
sure.
So like, but it is generally true of that. I want to switch gears to cover a little bit
Yeah.
about the hemp thing, and then we can continue riffing or not. But Andrew keeps looking at his watch, so
I just keep getting buzzed with messages. That's
Oh,
all. I'm not in
okay.
a hurry.
I wanted to ask. We understand that there's some legal challenges, perhaps, to the proclamation, the letter from
Memo.
the Attorney General, Attorney General
What's
Mays.
it called? Lawyer lady?
Opinion.
Opinion.
That suggests that states that after April 23rd, if you have products for sale in your establishment, fine $20,000 per instance is that's the figure.
Okay.
But and if it's like liquor law, which it's not per se, that could be per container, right? So
I mean, does
or
it
per sale,
per
obviously.
sale probably?
But I know that if you have, let's say, a 6-pack of beer behind the sales counter, and it's not something you can legally get through a
Right. It's
distributor,
a primary source of
they'll
supply
charge
issue.
you 6 times whatever
Yeah.
the fine is. Anyway, $20,000.
Camila's like, yeah, I'm the one that came up with that.
No, I was not. I was not.
So, without identifying anybody, but I've heard some theories on why this could be. Is there something that you generally would say about how one could, what is the process for it? So it's an opinion. So that's just your opinion, man. So I'm not about to continue to do what I'm doing if I'm going to get clipped for $20,000. And my assumption is the charge of a felony will suspend your license immediately, or is there due process for that?
No, there's due process.
Uh-huh.
So licenses are property.
Uh-huh.
Not just the property licenses, but all licenses are property.
Hmm.
And any action against the license, you do get due process.
But that could be anyway.
I mean, the department has legal authority, very limited legal authority to merely suspend somebody, which
Right.
means you suspend their license, but you have to have a hearing within a certain amount of time.
Right.
So, but you also have to prove, different factors
But
of why it's an emergency.
sure. I mean, I'm just going to point to the case that we talked about, which is wrong way driving. There was I don't know if it actually happened, but there was the statement from the department, like, we will suspend your license immediately.
Mm-hmm.
There was also the case where a firefighter was beat to death at a strip club, and they suspended that license. It seemed without a lot of. It didn't take long, right? It was
Right.
It was. I mean, whether there was a hearing or not, like, part of me says that you want a lot of time to prepare for something like that, and part of me says, I don't know, like, so there is that, right? They can.
It's a very limited authority, though. Like
Yeah.
I want it. So I have had a couple. But
If that entity who on April 24th, an agent goes in, says, hello, you're still selling this. We told you not to. Whether we're finding you or not, we're going to suspend your license right now. And they say, well, you can't do that. But you already acknowledged that this is the rule. You're arguing that it's not the rule, but that this opinion has come out. You can't be like, oh, well, that wasn't entitled. I didn't even know what happened. Because you've already replied.
no, I mean,
I'm not here to try and get
not
people's
having,
license
like-
suspended.
not having knowledge, that's
Mhm.
not a defense. Like, let's say you didn't know that the opinion came out, the letter came out, the warning came out, whatever.
But
You
that's
did
going to
not-
be different than a law.
So the attorney general does have statutory authority to have to I know.
Damn it.
Does have statutory authority to issue opinions. They have. I'll have to look at that statute again to see what effective, like, legal effects that they have. I mean, the attorney general can't legislate, but they were asked by, our attorney general, she was asked by legislators to interpret this law. And she does have statutory authority to issue, all attorney generals, to issue this opinion. So she did that last year.
Okay. And the opinion was based on a question that is different from the question perhaps
Right.
today.
So the question that was presented to our attorney general was whether an entity that is not licensed by the Arizona Department of Health Services, so this would include liquor licensees.
And the people that are licensed by the Department of Health Services are cannabis dispensaries.
Yes. Among a whole bunch of other people, right?
Pharmacies.
Yes.
Ooh.
Well, no, pharmacies have the pharmacy board, but they might also have a health service license. I don't know that because I did not deal with health service.
I'm finding a lot of money for CVS right here.
No, they have pharmacy licenses by the pharmacy. So that's a tangent. So any entity that's not licensed by the Arizona Department of Health Services sell products containing hemp synthesized intoxicants like Delta 8 THC, Delta 10 THC, or any product that has been synthetically converted from natural occurring CBD or other cannabinoids into intoxication. So that was the question posed. The Attorney General's office answered that question in an opinion from March of 2020. In the meantime, we have all of these Delta 9 THC products, hemp products, being sold across the state. And then a couple of weeks ago, the letter was saying from the Attorney General's office, our opinion also applies to those, and you cannot sell them as of April 23rd, right? So now the question is, so she sort of horseshoed that question from last year into this letter. And now there are counter legal arguments that are saying, well, you were always just talking about Delta 8 and Delta 10. You were never talking about Delta 9, which is not a synthetic THC. That's the legal argument.
Right.
And that's a statutory interpretation question of whether or not you also come in federal law, right, with the Farm Bill that does talk about Delta 9s, of whether or not this opinion applies to that. So it's tough, right? It's tough because you get asked a legal question, you foresee this issue, and now this other issue that is similar but not identical comes up, and you have to see whether or not the same analysis applies. And that's what lawyers do all the time. And it's not easy. It just isn't.
So we should do a couple things here. We should state unequivocally that all of us here believe that you should, if you have these products, have them out of your stores, retail locations, like completely, not just they're not on the shelf. Like, I mean,
Not on the licensed premise for sure.
Mhm.
You should have them vacated by this date, if not earlier. There is nothing in that what we say that should lead you to the conclusion that you should not do that. You
Right.
should remove those. Like, that is clear.
Yes.
The legal arguments notwithstanding, like, that's not going to save you.
Yeah,
That's not.
don't get hit with the $20,000 fine and then try and fight it.
Right.
Just avoid it.
So I think that understands, like, that's a definitional argument. Does this
Yeah.
apply in the same way? That's an argument that somebody could make. The other argument I heard is why does this constitute a felony? And I think they made a $20,000 fine and they made it a felony so that nobody would challenge this like you would challenge some other laws. Like, you break the law to have the case so that you prevail in that case.
So I want to. So I heard the pod from a
Yeah.
couple weeks back about that argument. So there is a type of lawsuit that you can file that doesn't require you to break the law in order to change the law.
Okay.
So, and when you ask for, it's called a DEC action, you ask for declaratory relief. So you are saying, I think this interpretation of the law is incorrect, but we're not going to risk violating it in order to have standing to challenge the law. But you can't just file a lawsuit in court and say, I feel like challenging this law. No, there's a test, right?
Right.
There's a test. You have to, I can't quite recall it this second, but there's a variety of factors. It has to be of statewide importance. It has to be something that can, plausibly be broken over and over again, right? That is some issue that will come up over
Be persistent
and over.
and
Yeah. And it has to, and you still have to show standing that you are the correct party in order to bring that action. And there probably are parties, retailers, wholesalers, whatever that would fit all of the criteria to bring that kind of action against the state without having to break it.
For our purposes, for the layman, like you have to have invested in something. You have to
Yes.
have your business has to have some consequence of.
Like a photographer couldn't bring a deck action against the hemp.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you and I can't sit here and be like, we don't like this law. Let's
Right.
bring it. No, it has to be something that
It has to be part of your industry. It has to be an opportunity that you were led to believe or reasonably believe that this was okay or that you had to be invested in some way. You had to have some sort of
Yes.
standing. And
yeah, you have to have some sort of standing.
and our organization does not have standing. Brewers Guild doesn't have standing for that.
Probably not as an association.
Yeah.
We probably don't meet that criteria. I mean, there are
But there are definitely people in the state that probably have standing.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I mean, anyone who's selling it right now, right?
not anyone necessarily.
not anyone. And the first so those lawsuits are not easy
Mhm.
because the first argument you make is that the other person doesn't have standing.
Right.
This first argument, the first motion that the state
Right.
is going to file
Dismiss.
is
They have no
motion
standing.
to dismiss for lack of standing. Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have? do we have an understanding of why it's a felony? Because it's very convoluted in my mind for an average person to understand. Because this is a
I-
product you can buy, right? It's clear.
Right.
In Arizona, you can buy this product. You could have this product in the same format. You can have it in your system, right?
So you're talking about THC,
Yeah.
right?
So
So it is legal if it goes through the proper channels, but they're saying you're not going through the proper channels, essentially. Except that's not even the argument, actually.
they can say that, well, we have regulations around this. The only regulation is it 21 for THC? I have no idea.
Yeah, 18 with the med card.
Okay, so there's an inconsistency right off the bat, in the way that I don't know. It just we talked about where Title IV is, and historically, the players that came before have things that are in their favor, whether they correspond to economic reality or if they stifle small businesses or
Innovation.
innovation startups. This is the exact same case, and I know that industry does not like the M word, but like if the only place you can buy it is the same place that manufactures it, more or less, it is a closed market. I won't use the M word, but anyway, why is it a felony?
Well, the
Because
opinion
I say
says
so.
well, no, the opinion says that marijuana and cannabis are still considered in Arizona Schedule 1 control.
uh-huh.
So if you and
I guarantee you, though,
this is not my area, but
Yeah.
like we think of controlled substances as illegal drugs,
yeah.
but I am pretty sure that there are also legal drugs with a prescription that are also Schedule 1 controlled substances, like OxyContin,
Okay.
right? So what I think she's saying is like, I can't sell you
Right.
OxyContin, but if I have a pharmacy license and somebody brings me a prescription, I could sell them
The Schedule 1 drug.
Right.
Yeah. And that's exactly what a dispensary does, right? I mean, we've legalized recreational, but they are licensed to sell this product under these regulations. Just like certain drugs, like morphine is a Schedule 1 controlled substance.
Mhm.
My doctor can prescribe me morphine, but I can't get it from anywhere else.
Okay.
So I think that's the
All right.
am I being clear?
Yeah, no.
Okay,
I sort of
okay.
follow that. But like, there was talk about under the previous administration of descheduling it.
Right, but it didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen. But if it would have happened, I think they would have kept that argument. I literally think they would have said they would have figured out another way. Like not necessarily the Attorney
Right.
General, but the people who want to protect this industry from any outside competition, even though in the long term it would benefit them. That's just my and no one can challenge that legally, my opinion. Okay, well, I mean, it's clearer, but I do again, if you have this product and you're selling it, like, there's nothing that we have said today that should dissuade you from removing those products from your premises prior to that date. Oh, it's all right. Roll with it. So I think that sort of exhausts that a
Yeah.
little bit. Should the people who oppose the Attorney General's it wouldn't, she could write another opinion, right?
Well,
To
I-
clarify or to hone in or
The question would have to
She-
come from
she
someone.
only has authority. Yes, she only has authority to write an opinion if requested by like agencies,
right.
legislators.
Regardless,
So,
someone else could ask a different question
Yeah.
and reframe it. And so, nevertheless, I think that would perhaps give some of the larger parties involved in retail to say, well, all right, so we're going to go, we could go another year of having this murky, and I think that might encourage people who don't really give a shit about and don't have liquor licenses to get into this industry. That's clear to me. Like, oh, well, they overturned the Attorney General's opinion.
There's
I don't
still
have-
no law.
I don't have a license to lose, so I think that might be the effect.
not if there's a felony.
No, if this opinion is
Oh,
deemed, if there's,
Inappropriate.
all I'm saying is, that's a lot of pages for, like, it's not, clearly there was a need to clarify the legislation. Like, if the legislation was clearer, this would not be the deal.
Which legislation?
Yes.
The marijuana legislation?
Farm Bill.
The Farm Bill and Arizona's prohibition on it, because there's also the fact that it's illegal to consume but not inhale or inject. Like, that's not in something you're going to read. That's my understanding of the statute. It's not comprehensive, the statute. It wasn't comprehensive because there's a multi-page opinion on it, right? I mean, if I kill Andrew, like, I don't get an opinion like from the Attorney General, like, right? Like some extenuating, like, they're all exhausted. Like, it's very clear, like, that part of the law.
Yeah. No,
So-
that's very, yeah.
So, by doing essentially nothing or just adding law enforcement on top of the current laws doesn't fix this problem, or doesn't make this problem. It might fix it with an opinion, but those are always challengeable. And we're dealing with, the head of the ATF not showing up for work and kind of ghosting it. Like, there is a trend towards not regulating things. There is a trend. There already is a state trend removing regulation. So it's interesting how policymakers pick and choose, because, like, they want to resist all the regulations. I had someone say, "Hey, well, it should be unregulated because I don't believe in regulation." I'm like, well, all right, well,
Yeah.
there are consequences to all these actions. You can't be a libertarian forever about everything. If it, I mean, unless you completely vacate our Title IV laws, and it needs a fix. We have a federal representative who wants to ban the ATF. So that's in Andrew's district. Anyway,
I own him.
we'll probably just wrap up here, but
Yeah.
are there trends that you see as someone in your position, things that more of our licensed solar should be aware of? Or are you, as your 18 years of experience, specifically post-pandemic, what are some of the things that you're addressing maybe more than you used to?
Well, I mean, we started this podcast talking about how complicated Title IV is, and it just really hasn't gotten simpler. Like it's gotten way more complicated. So I think that, I mean, I get questions from people that have been in the industry for a long time, and it's just a new way of looking at things. And it is also what the enforcement priorities are by the DLLC. I mean, there is, um, it's constantly, constantly evolving. I remember at a guild meeting, you said that I always double check the statute whenever I'm asked the question. And it's true. I mean, I basically live in Title IV and I always double check the language because the question posed just might be slightly different than how I had thought about it in the past. So I just encourage everybody to just ask. If you're a guild member, you can give me a call or write me an email. I'm always happy to answer. Um,
If you have an agent,
yeah,
they can either give you an answer or direct you
Yeah.
to somewhere.
but they can't give out legal advice. But yeah, they if you feel like you need legal representation in something, you can, give me or another, alcohol lawyer a call. But yeah, I mean, the trends are that there are no trends. I don't, it's just every day it's just something new.
I would, this is my take on it, and of course what you were saying. I think as inflation takes away from any profit some of our businesses have, as tariffs create uncertainty, as the trend toward other beverages than beer being popular, as hospitality becomes more important, you're going to find businesses trying to be more creative and exploring areas that we hadn't
Mhm.
anticipated. And some of that is healthy, and some of those we have answers for, like the alternating proprietorship is one of them. Having the definition of beer expanded to include other products. This hemp beverage would have put us in a different footing for non-alcoholic beverage
Yeah.
production. It didn't. Obviously, hemp would be its own thing too. I think all those things, again, push this industry towards areas that the DLLC hasn't addressed. And some of these are very, very complex. Like, without disclosing, you brought up an issue that we kind of batted around, and I can't imagine with a staff where you have agents that are year old, 2 years old, who don't have an understanding of where we are and why we got here. I'm not suggesting that just because you've been around and you should get your way, but understanding the legislative intent, understanding how the players in this industry handled some of these issues is important, because they're the ones that are going to support the decision or oppose it. And it's better to get industry behind it and enforcing
Right.
it through self-regulation. That's what I see. It's just going to get more complicated, which is exactly what you said. Andrew, you got a thought on this too? What are you hearing?
One of those hot takes? No, I mean, it's just more complicated every day. Definitely the uncertainty of the current administration's priorities, deregulation everywhere. tariffs, which is the opposite of deregulation, but
Yeah.
certainly fits in there somehow. And just chaos. So I think that the trend of beer losing market share and alcohol overall losing market share just makes it more challenging. And that means that people are getting more creative, and we're going to find new ways to do something and try and shoehorn it into the current
Yeah.
structure.
I'll leave it at a bright point. That just means the existing businesses that we have are all the more important for, not necessarily a growing, maybe a flat segment of the demographics, but it's very important for us to have those places, and things will come around as they normally do. So anyway, this is not a beer podcast. It's a podcast about beer.
Good point.
And
And laws.
I'm going to find another beer after this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.